Hello and welcome to this episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my absolute delight to be joined by my good friend, the fabulous Linda Fisk. Linda, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kim. This is such a pleasure to be on your podcast. I have to say, your assembly of amazing guests over the past however many weeks, months, years it's been, has been stunning. You bring together some of the most impressive, some of the most impactful leaders on the planet. So to be among your guests is a real privilege. Thank you so much.
Oh, bless you, Linda. You always make me feel so amazing. But before we get stuck in, and I know once we get chatting, we can get chatting, but let me share with the audience a little bit about you. So Linda is a multi-award winning leader, keynote speaker, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, university professor dedicated to amplifying and extending the success of other high-caliber business leaders. She's the founder and CEO of LeadHERship Global, a community of unstoppable women enhancing their leadership blueprint and embracing their power to be the very best version of themselves in work and in life. In LeadHERship Global, Linda supports and guides ambitious, creative women to move in the direction of their purpose, their mission, and their dreams with connections, critical support, practical tools, and valuable resources to show up, speak up, and step up in their careers and personal life. And you do it so eloquently. And that's one of the things we wanted to kind of touch on today. But before we get into that, can you share with us a bit about your journey so far, Linda?
Well, I appreciate that, Kim. I would say that some of the early challenges that I had, and I'm sure everyone has a unique challenge that they faced during their journey. For me, the earliest challenge that I faced was one of very severe stuttering. And so I actually had such a very significant speech impediment, such a pronounced stutter, that it became incredibly impossible to hold a conversation with anyone. I was diagnosed as being clinically shy, which means that I couldn't even hold eye contact with someone, let alone actually engage in a conversation with them. By the time I was in grade school, I had learned how to become pretty invisible. And by the time I was in middle school and high school, I really had adopted a persona of being very quiet, very reserved, almost a little bit ostracized from others. And by the time I was entering college, I recognized that I had really isolated myself because having a conversation, entering into a dialogue with someone was so challenging. Normally, the conversation had moved on before I could even utter a word. And so because of that, actually in high school, I had the nickname Mouse because I was quiet as a mouse. Luckily, I was an athlete and a scholar, so I had other ways of being able to express myself, but verbal expression was just beyond my reach. I recognized, though, in college that if I didn't find a way of overcoming this invisible disability, if I didn't find a way of challenging myself to really find the pathway to overcome this really significant obstacle, I would never have the life that I dreamed of. I would never be able to have the kind of relationships that I longed for, the kind of intimacy, the kind of connection, the kind of relationships that I really wanted. And so I began a journey of, I took speech classes. I took public speaking classes. I was in a speech therapy. I was in counseling. And much of this was to overcome my incredible fear of connection with others and with groups and crowds. So some of this was definitely anxiety provoking. But some of this really was neurological as well. So I had a lot of issues to kind of contend with. But by the end of my senior year in college, I had won a state level, regional, and national speech competition. So it took hundreds of hours of work and training and practice. It took hundreds of hours of therapy and counseling. It took hundreds of hours of speech therapy. But I got to a place where not only could I hold a conversation, I could hold eye contact. I could be in front of a crowd of 500 or 5,000 people and be able to draw on those reserves and actually engage in conversation. So, with the creation of LeadHERship Global, I'm providing women with what I really long for, the ability to meet inspirational leaders, to create lifelong friendships, and be surrounded by people that are deeply invested in your success. And I try to create a safe, supportive, trusting environment in LeadHERship Global where women from all over the world can be inspired and motivated by other women leaders who will cheer them on, counsel them, support them, and help them achieve greater and greater levels of success and impact.
I love that. And you do it so effortlessly. And every time I hear your story, it always blows my mind, because anybody who met you today would struggle to kind of imagine that you ever didn't find this easy, because you make it look so effortless and so graceful. And yet I know how much work and how much effort you had to put in to be in that position, and how you're now able to kind of drive, take that learning and help it to drive other people to overcome their part, because we can sometimes get overwhelmed, can't we? You can look at it and go, it's just too big. But when we break it down to what's the next step, then actually the next step's possibly achievable. And
absolutely, Kim. And I'll tell you that the very first time I stood up in front of a entry-level public speaking course in college, literally just standing in front of the podium, I had my entire speech written out. I was practiced, I was prepared, and I just knew that I was going to be able to overcome my very significant stuttering. Now, I had already warned the professor of my disability, had already explained that this was something I was working on. And I was standing in front of the classroom, gripping the podium for dear life, looked up, saw the faces looking at me, and literally passed out. So from that very first class where I passed out in front of my my colleagues, my classroom of other students, to now where I can stand on a stage in front of 10,000 people comfortably, that is a journey. And what we try to do at LeadHERship Global is create and support those same kinds of breakthroughs, whether that breakthrough is personal or professional. We want to guide women to achieving greater leverage, greater freedom in both their careers and their businesses. And let me just say, all women face challenges. In fact, despite making up more than 50% of the US population and almost 60% of the civil labor force here in the United States, women are staggeringly absent from upper level positions in the American workforce. There's a long history of women's roles in American workforce between wars, social movements, political climates, but very little progress has been made in the way of gender equality in the workplace. And that's one of the reasons why I am so passionate about ensuring that women have the resources and the tools, the connections, the advantages, the benefits, the privileges that we offer, is that we want to make sure that we erase the double standard in whether a woman is running for office, or she's attempting to be placed in a board position, or she simply wants a well-deserved C-suite position. We want to ensure that women have the opportunity to step into their power and be given equal opportunity. In fact, women only make up 4% of the Fortune 500 CEOs, and only 3% of the Fortune 500 companies have at least one Hispanic or Latina member on their board of directors. So we know that there's still a lot of work to be done, but we believe that by bringing together women in significant positions of influence, authority, and leadership, we can unite and make inroads into some of those really disturbing statistics.
And absolutely, and they are, they're disturbing all over the place. I was at an event recently where we were talking about the disparity of females getting investments. So, if you decide that they want to step up and run their own organization, and despite the fact that globally there has been commitment from governments and from all kinds, from the banks, to say that they're going to change this, we're actually seeing it go backwards, not forwards. So it's it used to be less than 4%. It's now less than 3% investment goes to women. So even though we're focused on it, we're getting worse. And we need to adjust that, don't we, and change it. And that's one of the things that organizations like LeadHERship Global is so brilliant at, because you are bringing together the opportunity for people to connect. And we usually just need to be put in front of the right person, don't we? But one of the things that I've noticed, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it, is particularly as women, we can be really bad at knowing what it is we want. We're very good at knowing what we don't want. Yeah, I don't want to be this, I don't want to be that, I don't want to be the other. But when you say to somebody, but what do you want? Because for somebody like you, who's such an amazing connector and so gracious with your network, it would make it so much easier, I would imagine, for you if people came up and went, Linda, what I really need is, but we, one, don't know what it is we want rather than what we don't want, and two, we're very bad at asking for help. Would you say that's fair?
Absolutely fair. And, you mentioned something about women entrepreneurs. And if I could sort of reiterate a very important point you made, here in the United States, the US Census Bureau indicated that women entrepreneurs run about 42% of American small businesses. That's nearly 13 million. And they employ 9.4 million people and generate more than, it's nearly $2 trillion in revenue. In fact, women started almost 2,000 new businesses every single day last year. And 64% of new women-owned businesses were started by women of color. But then get this, the real, I think, disappointing point about this is exactly what you said, that women are not receiving financial support from investors or VCs needed to get their business off the ground. And this is backed by a growing body of research. In fact, a recent Columbia Business School study found that female-led ventures are, get this, 63% less likely to receive venture capital funding. And that's despite the fact that female-led ventures do receive funding. When they do receive funding, they're just as likely to achieve some sort of exit outcome or IPO that is literally record-breaking. So I have to tell you that it is heartbreaking that both in a corporate setting and in an entrepreneurial setting, whether you're a business owner, a business founder, or you work in a large corporation, whether that's a nonprofit or for-profit, women face barriers and biases that are really unique to our gender. And some of that, to your point, is being clear about what your vision is, what your mission is, what your purpose is. Some of that is advocating for yourself. It's asking for what you need. It's creating the network around you of others that will lift you up, that will support you, that will deeply invest in your success and open up doors for you. So you have to ask for what you want, and you have to be clear about your mission, your vision, and your purpose.
Yeah, that's great advice, and you're so right. It reminds me, I wrote an article about this actually just the other week, but I wonder whether or not some of the challenge is because as women, we are historically a little bit more driven to be risk averse, because we're constantly thinking about, is that safe for the children? Am I going to be safe walking down this street? Am I going to be, am I going to be okay if I'm out on my own at this time of night? And to a level that possibly men haven't had to consider because society hasn't driven it that way. And therefore, some of the research that I found was when you're looking at putting it in front of investors, women tend to be very focused on the risk. And there was some research that showed that actually when you establish the questions that were asked by investors of women, all of the questions were about the risk and whether or not it was likely. It was very much more on the doubt side. Whereas the questions they asked of men were always about the upside and could there be even more in it? But I wonder if some of that is because subliminally we're talking more about the risk of doing anything that we're doing rather than the opportunity. And that's why communities like yours really help, because then you're not in it on your own. You mitigate some of that risk because you've got people around you that have got the skills and support to help.
I love that, Kim. And you're right. We women have a particular difficulty developing self-confidence and being bold and being accepting of a certain level of risk. Compared with men, women don't consider themselves ready for promotion. They predict that they'll do worse on tests. They generally underestimate their considerable abilities, and they rank themselves lower than men on almost every single skill test. And yet self-confidence is linked to almost every single element involved in a happy and fulfilling life. In fact, confidence gives you the skills and the coping methods to handle setbacks, to handle failure. And self-confidence doesn't necessarily mean you won't sometimes fail, but you'll know that you can handle the challenges and you won't be crippled by them. So even when things don't turn out anywhere close to what you planned, you'll be able to avoid beating yourself up, blaming yourself, and you'll be able to have a quicker level of really significant resilience to stand back up, recognize that that's a learning moment, realize that failure stands for the first attempt in learning, and be able to move forward. So in my mind, I think that, of course, you and only you can make new things happen in your life. And if you wait for serendipity to provide you with good fortune or increased confidence, you're going to be waiting a long time. But there is a path towards self-confidence, and it's one that each actual individual has to travel, much like I did in conquering my stuttering, that invisible disability. No one could do that for me. No one was going to open up a door to a path towards overcoming that incredible obstacle in my life. I had to do it myself. But I will tell you, if you lack confidence and you want to build your self-confidence, you want to be bold, you want to be a risk taker, it's important to keep in mind that it's a process. It can't be built overnight. So how do some women create the belief in themselves to push the limits of their abilities? Well, it starts with recognizing their successes. It starts with celebrating their successes. Every single small step along the way deserves recognition. So the very first time I could stand up in front of a podium and not pass out, I celebrated. The first time I could get through just the first paragraph of a speech and not pass out, I celebrated. Did I hit my goal? Absolutely not. But was it a step in the right direction? Completely. So it started to build my confidence. Look, I'm better now than I was last week. I'm better now than I was a month ago. And will I have setbacks? Absolutely. But I'm making progress. And I think that that's the difference in the ability for some people to be resilient, to have that sense of self, and to be able to forge a path forward, even in incredibly daunting circumstances.
Oh, I love that. And it just made me smile, because it reminds me of, like, I have this with Scarlett, because we're very quick to pick up a label. So she'll come home and she'll, I can't do maths, mummy. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just think for a moment. Let's look at how you did today versus yesterday. Oh, well, I did a bit better. Okay, and how about yesterday versus last week? Oh, well, I'm much better. And how about last week versus last month? Oh, actually, mummy, I'm quite good. I'm getting better. And I was like, so now what do you think? She goes, I'm getting better at maths. I was like, exactly. Now let's try the next one and see what happens. And just shifting that mindset view changes things. So I love that whole celebrating the small steps. And one of my friends once shared with me, and I love it. So I've done one, was get yourself a Big Me Up book. So every time you've done a little step and you've celebrated it, you write it down in a book or a note on your phone, so that the next time you're feeling down, you look back and flick through it and go, oh, but look at how much I've already achieved. And it changes your energy so that you're better placed to move forward. And the other thing that I always recommend to people, and this is for me where LeadHERship Global comes in so beautifully, is get your Thrive Hive, get your 4 or 5 people that you know are going to have you back and be on your side. And for me, they need to be very different people. I need someone who's going to give me the tough love to get over myself and stop velcroing my hand to my head. I can't do it, and take a step. But I also need someone who might sugar the pill for when I'm not quite ready for tough love just yet. But that's why communities like LeadHERship Global are so amazing, because you've got those people who are going to be there to help you thrive, and that you can help them thrive in return, because you're able to give that support back. And I think that they're just invaluable. And it's amazing that you've created a community like this that people from all around the world can access.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim. I would say that I have certainly learned that being in a community of other leaders allows you to have an outlet to continuously learn and improve in a confidential setting. So you get exposure to new ways of approaching problems and issues, as well as new ways of leveraging opportunities. But importantly, this kind of safe, supportive environment allows members and allows leaders from every single walk of life to develop friendships and networks with other CEOs, other business leaders, business founders, business investors, that can enrich not just your professional life, but your personal life as well. And I think it's incredibly important to choose a leadership community that supports your unique purpose, because when you find your tribe, your power tribe, you can improve the growth and profitability of your organization, because you benefit from the hard-won lessons and the experiences of other leaders. So you get access to best practices on key issues. You can receive honest feedback, honest advice, unbiased and objective feedback from others who have no conflict of interest, and they can collaborate with other leaders to work on the business rather than just in the business. And that is such a privilege, to collaborate with other people who have unique vantage points, experiences, expertise, who can provide to you the kind of feedback and honest, objective, unbiased guidance that you need to take that next step in growing and scaling your business. So, as Aristotle said, excellence is not an act, but a habit. And so being in the habit of consulting with others who may be able to fill an experience gap you have as you begin to grow and scale and prepare for exit of a business, there are going to be experiences that you just have never stepped into yet, right? It's something new to you. You've just never had that experience. But being in a community of others who could say, oh, I've been there. Oh, I've done that. I've made a mistake. I made a misstep. Don't do this, but do that. That is an incredible privilege, and allows you to not only miss some of the incredible pitfalls that might actually be incredibly detrimental to your business, but it also allows you to scale your business, to be able to move towards exit that much more quickly. So I really believe that as leaders, we all have to learn how to create our own power tribe that supports our purpose, our passion, and helps us really accelerate whatever our unique definition of success is.
I completely agree, because I think it's that we can't do it on our own, because it's not much fun. It's a lot more fun with other people around you, and again, having that combined lived experience that you can draw on and you can also share allows people to see those pitfalls. We've all had, we've all gone the benefit with the benefit of hindsight. We've all got 20/20 vision, but we've all had to fall down the hole first, then go, okay, not that way. So, and if you can, somebody that can just share with you, okay, there's a hole over there, don't jump in it. I did, it was ugly. Then it helps you accelerate the pace, doesn't it? Because you can then not make that mistake. You may make a new mistake, because that's where we learn and where we grow. And I loved what you shared earlier about failure is just the first instance of
Learning. Yeah, I love that.
How we keep iterating. And it struck me, it reminded me of, I think it was Edison who said, I didn't find one way to create the light bulb. I found 10,000 ways not to create the light bulb. But in every one of them, it moved a little bit further, just a little bit further, until eventually it succeeded. And that's been pretty much what's happened with every great success story, isn't it? It's been in what's been done consistently, which is the iteration and the learning and the evolving. And I guess it's not just learning what went wrong, it's learning what went well, so that you repeat the what went well and you do something differently from the what didn't go so well. That is what changes the outcome, isn't it?
That's right. And you said something that I think is just so important. Relationships. And you really mentioned the power of relationships. And my belief is that relationships are a powerful part of who we are. They can help us feel like we belong, like we have something to contribute to this world. They can strengthen us. They give us reasons to affect change, and more importantly, to actually be changed. But it's often difficult to connect with people that when maybe we don't understand their background, maybe we don't understand their culture, their belief system, their lived experiences. So how do we learn to interact respectfully and knowledgeably with people in our lives who exist outside our inner circle, people whose culture or maybe their worldview is so far removed from our own? How do we use our differences to strengthen our bond as humans? It's through connection in a global organization or community like LeadHERship Global. It gives everyone the opportunity to learn about cultural competence, which to me is the ability to understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people across cultures, right? So cultural competency encompasses not only being aware of your own worldview, but developing positive attitudes towards cultural differences. We have women from Kenya, Africa, and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Australia, New Zealand, South America, Europe, all over the world. And being able to gain knowledge about those different cultural practices, worldviews, and developing skills for communication and interaction across culture is an incredibly important gift and skill. So cultural proficiency, I think, requires us to become culturally aware and not just practice tolerance, but really begin to embrace other worldviews. It's the ability to identify and challenge your own cultural assumptions, values, and belief, and then to make a commitment at communicating at that intersection of what we know and what we don't know. And to me, that's also one of the beautiful opportunities in a global community like LeadHERship Global, is you get to develop these deep, rich, meaningful relationships like you and I have.
Yeah.
And we also get to be exposed to people who are all over the world and may see even my own culture very differently from what I do. In fact, I often have conversations with women in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, and say, how is the U.S. viewed in your part of the world? And it's really surprising. It's sometimes really kind of entertaining to hear how they view the United States. And I think research has proven over and over again that executives at organizations with advanced diversity and inclusion strategies are 30% more likely to feel loyal, innovative, and set up for top performance. So that's just a small indicator of how important it is to be culturally competent and to embrace diversity and inclusion, and being in a community of leaders that look different from you, that think differently from you, that hold perspectives that are unique and different from yours. It only strengthens who we are as leaders.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think, for me, one of the things that I think we, to quote something out of The Sound of Music, we have a deplorable lack of curiosity because we stop being curious about ourselves and about others. And I think, for me, that's the driver, is how do we become passionately curious? As children, we learn so much. We're curious. We want to know everything. And as soon as we get to be adults, we think we do know everything. So we stop questioning, is that the only answer? Is my view the only way that works? And yet we know we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there is a down. For every left, there is a right. So for every opinion and idea we have, the exact opposite is also true. And once we become curious to that, we become open-minded to it, then that's when we really grow and learn. And that's where communities like this give us that safe environment to be curious and therefore grow through that curiosity and impact the world more positively as a result of it.
I love that, Kim. That was so well said. I am completely with you. And, that's why we really were very passionate about creating an impactful community of extraordinary women all around the globe. Because we are trying to not only create a comprehensive methodology that's really designed to unleash their full potential, these high performing, growth oriented leaders, but we also wanted to give them an opportunity to create a confidential, supportive, and private community that challenges some of their preconceived ideas, some of their notions about maybe what it takes to grow and scale a business, maybe what it takes to be a trusted authority within a industry, maybe what it takes to be a very influential, known personal and professional brand. So we help women, to your point at the very beginning of our time together, we help women define their vision, to be clear about what they want, not just what they don't want, to be clear about what they want, to define their vision, to grow their leadership, to expand their influence, and really be able to create a lasting legacy, much like you're doing, Kim-adele. You are amazing, and the impact that you're creating around the world. I mean, the ripple effect is just remarkable. And so we try, much like you, to harness the knowledge, the influence, and trust of other high-performing leaders all around the world and share that generously with others.
Oh, Linda, you are always far too generous and kind, and I so appreciate you, my friend. And I'm gutted that we've come to the end, because you and I could chat all day, couldn't we? And I look forward to it next time. But thank you for sharing such invaluable insight. And I will make sure all of the links to LeadHERship Global and how people can connect with you are in the notes below. And I highly encourage people to do so, because finding the right support network, finding the people that your power group, your team, is the game changer. And it makes everything a lot more fun. And Linda, I'm super grateful that you are in my power team. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Until next time, take care.